Commander Vexstar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking at the screens that showed a small blue planet. His 12-foot-tall body was covered in thick armor-like skin that could stop bullets. Sharp claws grew from his hands, and his red eyes glowed in the dim light of the command center. He was Crethani, and the Crethani were the strongest fighters in the entire galaxy, for 3,000 years. His people had ruled over countless worlds. No other race could match their strength. A planet Krathos Prime, a planet covered in active volcanoes where the temperature could melt steel. The acid rains there would eat through metal in minutes. Only the Crethani could survive such a deadly place, and it made them into perfect killing machines. The planet in front of them was called Earth by its people, and it looked interesting. The readings showed it was a Class 12 Deathworld, the most dangerous type of planet in their records. Massive storms raged across its surface. The ground shook with earthquakes. The air was filled with deadly gases. Lightning struck constantly. It was the kind of world that should kill any life that tried to grow there. "Sir," said his second-in-command Zekanel, "we are getting strange signals from the planet. They seem to have some basic technology." Vexstar clicked his claws together, a sign of amusement among his kind. Primitive creatures trying to play. With tools they do not understand. Send them our standard message. Tell them to surrender their world or face destruction. On the other side of space, Captain Jake Morrison was having his morning coffee aboard the UES Horizon when the message came through. Jake was 45 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes from years of military service. He had been expecting this day for 20 years. Ever since Earth's scientists first detected signals from deep space, the alien message was simple and direct. It came through their communication systems in perfect English, which was scary enough on its own. The voice was deep and harsh, like rocks grinding together. "Surrender your world. Resistance is futile. We are Crethani." Looked at his coffee cup for a long moment, then set it down carefully. He walked to the communication station where Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez was waiting. Amy was young, maybe 30, with bright eyes that showed her excitement despite the danger. She was their best expert on alien life, though she had never actually seen any aliens before today. "Captain," Amy said, "I've been studying the data that came with their message. These creatures are incredible. Look at this," she pointed to her screen, which showed a rough image of a Crethoni warrior. "They're huge, probably twice our size. Their skin is like natural armor. They come from a planet that makes our worst deserts look like vacation spots." Jake nodded slowly. "How bad is their world compared to ours?" Amy pulled up 2 sets of data on her screen. "Well, sir, their planet has surface temperatures around 200 degrees Fahrenheit. The air is mostly sulfur dioxide.
Ow.
There are active volcanoes everywhere. The radiation levels would kill most life forms in ours and Earth." Amy smiled, which surprised Jake. "Sir, their planet might be hot, but we have ice ages that drop temperatures to 80 below zero. We have hurricanes with winds over 200 miles per hour. Our ocean pressures would crush their volcanic rocks. We have deadly bacteria, poisonous plants, predators that hunt in packs, and natural disasters that can wipe out entire continents." Jake was starting to understand. "You're saying Earth might be more dangerous than their homeworld?" "Yes, sir. And we didn't just survive here. We made it our home. We learned to live in the Arctic and the desert. We built cities that can handle earthquakes and tsunamis. We turned every deadly thing on this planet into a tool to make us stronger." Jake walked back to the communication station and opened a channel to the Crethani fleet. When the deep, harsh voice came through again, Jake spoke clearly and calmly. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. We received your surrender demand. Here's our answer. Come and take it." The silence that followed lasted for several long seconds. Then the alien voice spoke again, but this time it sounded confused. "You dare to refuse the Crethani Empire? We have conquered 1,000 worlds. Our warriors are undefeated in battle." "Then you've never fought humans," Jake replied. "We look forward to showing you what we've learned living on the deadliest planet in the galaxy." Aboard the Crethani flagship, Vexstar stared at the communication device in disbelief. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever responded with defiance. They usually begged for mercy or tried to negotiate. These humans sounded almost eager to fight. Sir Zekanel said carefully, "Perhaps these creatures do not understand our power. Should we demonstrate by destroying one of their cities?" Vextar considered this. The Crethani way was simple. Show overwhelming force, demand surrender then. Rule through fear? It had worked on every world they had ever encountered. But something about these humans made him pause. No, he decided, we will land ground forces first. I want to see these creatures up close before we decide their fate. If they are truly from a Class 12 death world, they might be worth studying before we destroy them. Back on Earth, Jake was already preparing for war. He knew the aliens would come, and he knew humanity's only chance was to show these Crethani that Earth had produced something they had never seen before, a species that grew stronger through cooperation instead of domination. Dr. Peter Clark, the ship's medical officer, was reviewing human biology reports when Jake found him. Peter was a quiet man in his 50s who had served in 3 different wars and had seen the worst humanity could do to itself and others. "Doc," Jake said, "I need you to prepare medical teams for something we've never faced before. These aliens are tough, but our people are tougher in ways they won't expect." Peter looked up from his reports. "What do you mean, Captain?" "Me's data shows these Crethoni are perfect individual fighters. They're built like tanks and probably fight like wild animals. But humans learn to survive by working together. When one of us falls, others carry them. When we're hurt, we keep fighting. When we're scared, we protect each other." Peter nodded slowly. "You think that gives us an advantage?" "I think it gives us something they've never seen before," Jake said. "They're about to learn that the strongest species isn't always the one with the biggest claws." As Earth prepared for the first alien invasion in human history, no one knew that this war would change both species forever. The Crethani expected to find another weak race to conquer. Instead, they were about to discover that true strength comes not from what you can destroy, but from what you choose to protect. The stage was set for a battle that would teach the galaxy's greatest warriors that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones who refuse to fight alone. Humanity was about to show the Crethoni that being the strongest Deathworld species meant more than just surviving. It meant thriving together in conditions that would break any individual, no matter how tough they thought they were. The war was coming, but neither side truly understood what they were about to learn from each other. The first Crethani drop pods fell from the sky like burning meteors. General Marcus Stone watched from his command bunker as dozens of them crashed into the Australian outback. The aliens had chosen what looked like empty desert land, thinking it would be an easy place to start their invasion. They did not know that humans had been living and fighting in deserts for thousands of years. Sergeant Linda Hayes was waiting for them. She led a special unit of desert warfare soldiers who knew every rock and sand dune for miles around. Linda was 32 years old, tough as leather from years of training in the harshest places on Earth. Her skin was dark from the sun. Her eyes never missed anything that moved in the desert. "Here they come, boys and girls," she said into her radio as the alien pods cracked open. "Remember what we learned in training? Okay, these things are big and strong, but they don't know our dessert. Make every shot count." The first Crethoni warrior to emerge from a pod was massive. It stood 12 feet tall, covered in natural armor that looked like black metal. Its claws were as long as knives, and its red eyes scanned the horizon looking for enemies. The creature expected to see frightened humans running away. Instead, it found empty desert. Then the sand around its feet exploded. Linda's soldiers had buried themselves in the desert floor, waiting with perfect patience for hours. The Crethani warrior stumbled as hidden explosives went off beneath its feet. Before it could recover, human soldiers appeared from nowhere, rising out of the sand like ghosts. The battle that followed lasted 18 hours. The Crethani were stronger and tougher than any human, but they had never fought an enemy like this. The humans seemed to ignore pain. When they were wounded, they kept fighting. When their bones were broken, they helped each other and continued. The battle Private Tony Mitchell found himself trapped in a collapsed bunker with a wounded Crethani warrior named Zekanel. The alien's armor was cracked, and green blood was leaking from several wounds. Tony's left arm was broken, and he had cuts all over his face, but he was still alive. The bunker was dark and filled with dust. Both soldiers were badly hurt and could barely move. Tony had his sidearm in his good hand, and he could easily kill the alien. Zakanal was too weak to fight back. This should have been the end of the story. Instead, Tony did something that surprised them both. Put his weapon away and crawled over to examine the alien's wounds. Zakanal tried to growl a warning, but he was too weak to be threatening. "Easy there, big guy," Tony said quietly. "You're hurt pretty bad. I know we're supposed to be enemies, but nobody deserves to die slow like this." Tony opened his first aid kit with his good hand and began cleaning the alien's wounds. The Crethani warrior watched in confusion as this small human, who could barely move himself, worked to save his life. In Crethani culture, enemies were meant to be killed or left to die. Mercy was seen as weakness. "Why?" Zakanal asked in broken English. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "Because it's the right thing to do," Tony answered, wrapping bandages around a deep cut. "My mom always told me that. How we treat others shows who we really are. Doesn't matter if you're my enemy. You're hurt, and I can help, so I'm going to help." When Tony's emergency rations ran low, he split them equally with the alien. When his water supply got small, he made sure Zakanal got his share. The two soldiers waited in the dark bunker for rescue, and slowly they began to talk. Zakanal told Tony about life on Krithos Prime, where only the strongest survived. He spoke of endless battles for food and territory, of a culture where showing kindness was seen as a sign that you deserved to die. Tony listened and then shared stories about his own life. He talked about his family, about friends who had helped him through hard times, about teachers who had been patient when he struggled to learn. "On your world," Zakanal said slowly, "the weak ones die." "Sometimes," Tony admitted, "but mostly we help them get stronger. My little sister was born with a bad heart. On your world, she probably would have died as a baby. On Earth, doctors spent months helping her. My whole family worked extra jobs to pay for her medicine.
Ow.
She's in college, studying to become a doctor herself so she can help other kids like her." This was impossible for Zakanal to understand. Why would strong humans waste time and resources helping weak ones? But as he watched Tony share his last water with him, even though the human was clearly thirsty, Zakanal began to see a different kind of strength. Above ground, the battle continued to rage. Dr. Peter Clark was treating wounded soldiers at a mobile hospital when he noticed something amazing. The human soldiers were adapting to Crethoni weapons during the fight. Their bodies were learning to resist alien poisons. Wounds that should have been fatal were healing faster than expected. "It's incredible," he told General Stone over the radio. "These people aren't just tough because of training. Living on Earth for millions of years has made their bodies able to adapt to almost anything. The Crethani weapons are deadly, but our immune systems are treating them like just another Earth disease and learning to fight back." In space above Earth, Commander Lisa Bennett was fighting a different kind of battle. The Crethani had huge warships with powerful weapons and thick armor. Lisa's fleet was made up of converted mining ships, cargo haulers, and research vessels. They should have been destroyed in minutes. Instead, Lisa was using human creativity to turn weakness into strength. Her ships were not built for war, but they were built to work in the dangerous environment of space, so they could survive impacts that would cripple military vessels. They could operate in conditions that would shut down more advanced ships. "All vessels. This is Bennett," she said over the radio. "Remember, we're not trying to outfight them. We're trying to outlast them. Use everything you have. Ram them. If you have to make them work for every inch of space." A damaged cargo ship called the Memphis was losing power in air. Instead of retreating, its captain, Dan Rodriguez, aimed his ship directly at a Crethani cruiser and pushed his engines to maximum power. The collision destroyed both ships, but it also created a gap in the alien formation that allowed 3 human vessels to escape and regroup. When rescue teams finally reached Tony and Zakanal, they found something that would change both species forever. The human soldier was unconscious from blood loss, but he had positioned his body to shield the alien from falling debris. Zekanel was awake and had been trying to keep Tony warm with his own body heat. "He saved me," Zekanel told the human medics in his rough English. "Enemy saved me. I do not understand." Word of this spread through both armies. Crethany warriors began asking their commanders questions they had never asked before. Why had this human shown mercy? Why had he shared his food and water with an enemy? How could such apparent weakness lead to victory? The humans were winning battles they should have lost, surviving attacks that should have killed them, and showing a kind of courage that the Crethany had never encountered. They fought, not just for victory, but for each other. When one fell, others risked their lives to save them. When they were outnumbered, they stood together and refused to break. The first day of war was ending, and both sides were learning that strength came in many different forms. The Crethany were about to discover that the most dangerous enemy is not the one with the sharpest claws, but the one who refuses to fight alone. Captain Susan Wright never expected to be sitting across a table from an alien warrior who could tear her apart with his bare hands. But here she was in a quickly built meeting room, facing Crethany Commander Theklos. The massive alien was covered in scars from battles across the galaxy. His red eyes watched her carefully, trying to understand why she was not afraid. "Your warriors fight well," Theklos said in his rough voice, "but you cannot win this war. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We are the strongest species in the year." Galaxy Susan leaned back in her chair and smiled. "Commander, can I tell you a story?" The alien tilted his huge head, confused by the question. "A story?" "Yes, about a man named Dr. Sam Taylor. 20 years ago, a deadly plague broke out in the city of Mumbai. The disease killed 9 out of 10 people who caught it. The government told everyone to stay away from the infected areas. Most people ran as far as they could." Theklos listened, not understanding where this was going. "But Dr. Taylor was different," Susan continued. "He walked right into the plague zone. Not because he had to. Not because someone ordered him to. He chose to go. He spent 6 months treating sick children, knowing he would probably die. And he did die, but not before he saved over 300 kids." The Crethany commander was quiet for a long moment. This doctor was weak. He threw his life away for nothing, did he? Susan asked. Those 300 children grew up. They became doctors, teachers, engineers, soldiers. One of them invented a new type of medicine that has saved millions of lives. Another designed the ships we used to fight your fleet yesterday. A third became the general who planned our defense of Australia. Theklos shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I do not understand. Why would a strong warrior waste his life for weak children?" Susan pulled out a tablet and showed him pictures from Earth's history. "Because that's what humans do. We don't just survive. We help each other survive. Look at this picture. These are firefighters running into a burning building. They know. They might die, but they go in anyway because people need help." She showed him another picture. These are Coast Guard rescuers jumping into a freezing ocean during a storm. They're not trying to prove how tough they are. They're trying to save people who would otherwise drown. The alien stared at the pictures, his warrior mind struggling to understand. On Krethos Prime, the weak die so the strong can live. Is the way of nature. Maybe, Susan said. But on Earth, we learned something different. The strong protect the weak, and that makes everyone stronger. When we help each other, we all survive better. Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency alarm. Crethany transport ship had been damaged in the latest battle and was losing life support. 300 alien soldiers were going to die unless someone could fix their environmental systems. Engineer Ray Collins volunteered immediately. Ray was 55 years old, with gray hair and hands scarred from decades of fixing broken machines. He had been working on spaceships since he was 18, and there was nothing mechanical that he could not repair. "Ray, you don't have to do this," Captain Wright told him. "Those are enemy soldiers." Ray shrugged and picked up his toolkit. "Captain, I've got 3 sons fighting in this war. If they were trapped on a broken ship, I would want someone to help them, even if that someone was the enemy." The Crethany transport was a nightmare of twisted metal and sparking electronics. The environmental systems were failing, and radiation was leaking from the damaged power core. Any human who went inside would be exposed to deadly radiation levels. Ray went in anyway, working alongside Crethany technician Mordell. Ray crawled through damaged corridors and into spaces barely big enough for his body. The radiation was cooking him from the inside, but he kept working. When his hands started shaking from radiation sickness, he talked Mortal through the repairs over the radio. "The blue wire connects to the central processor," Ray said, his voice getting weaker. "The red one goes to the backup power supply. You have to be careful with the coupling on Section 7. It's delicate." Mortal had never worked with a human. Before, he expected Ray to be weak and useless. Instead, he found himself learning from someone who understood machines better than most Crethany engineers. Even as Ray was dying from radiation poisoning, he continued to help. "Human Ray," Mortal said, "why do you help us?" "Came to destroy your world." Ray coughed and there was blood in it. "'Cause you're not destroying anything right now, right? Now, you're just people who need help, and I know how to help." It took 6 hours to repair the life support systems. By the end, Ray was too weak to stand, but he had saved 300 Crethony lives. His last words over the radio were instructions on how to improve the environmental systems so they would work better in the future. Mortal watched the human die and felt something he had never experienced before. Water leaked from his eyes, which should have been impossible for a Crethany. His people did not cry. They did not feel sadness for enemies. But watching Ray Collins give his life to save alien soldiers created an emotion that Mortal had no words for. The story of Ray's sacrifice spread through both fleets like wildfire. Human soldiers told their families about the engineer who died. To save enemy lives, Crethany warriors asked their commanders questions that had never been asked in 3,000 years of conquest. "Commander." Theklos found himself back in the meeting room with Captain Wright, but this time he was the one asking questions. "Your engineer gained nothing by helping us," he said. "His death served no purpose for humanity's war effort." "Why did he do it?" Susan looked tired. She had been awake for 36 hours, managing the complex work of war and diplomacy. "Guess that's who we are, Commander. We don't help people because we gain something from it. We help because it's right." "But this makes no sense," Theklos said, frustration clear in his voice. "How can a species survive by wasting resources on enemies?" "We don't see it as waste," Susan replied. "We see it as investment. Every life we save, every person we help, makes all of us stronger. Ray Collins saved your people, and now some of your people are starting to question whether this war makes sense." She was right, and Theklos knew it. Reports were coming in from across the Crethony fleet. Soldiers were refusing orders to attack human medical ships. Warriors were asking why. They were fighting people who would risk their lives to save enemies. Some were even suggesting that these humans might have something to teach the Crethany about what it meant to be strong. Young Crethany warrior Zendar had been one of the fiercest fighters in the initial invasion. He had killed dozens of humans and felt pride in his victories. But then he had been caught in an explosion that left him paralyzed from the waist down. According to Crethany custom, he should have been left to die with honor. Instead, found himself in a human medical facility under the care of Dr. Nancy White. Nancy was a small woman in her 40s who had spent her career helping people walk. Again, after terrible injuries. She took one look at Zendar and decided that being paralyzed was a problem she could solve. "I don't care if you're 12 feet tall and covered in armor," she told the confused alien. "Nerves are nerves, and muscles are muscles. We're going to get you back on your feet." For months, Nancy worked with Zendar. She developed new medical techniques specifically for Crethony biology. She never gave up, even when her own medical colleagues said it was impossible. She treated her patient not as an enemy warrior, but as someone who needed help. The day Zendar took his first steps since the injury, he looked at Nancy and asked the question that was spreading through both armies. "Why did you help me? I came here to kill your people." Nancy smiled and patted his armored arm. "Because helping people is what we do. It's what makes us human." Zendar would spend the rest of his life thinking about those words and about the small human woman who had given him back his ability to walk. Admiral Helen Brooks could not believe what she was reading. The message had come directly from the Crethany High Command, encrypted with their highest security codes. For the first time in their 3,000-year history of conquest, the Crethany Empire was asking to learn from an enemy. The message was simple, but shocking. We request permission to study human settlements. We wish to understand your methods of survival. Offer temporary ceasefire for joint research. Helen read the message 3 times before calling her senior staff. This could be a trap, but something told her it was real. The reports from the front lines all told the same story. Crethany warriors were becoming confused and hesitant. Some were even helping wounded humans instead of finishing them off. Dr. Maria Gonzalez was chosen to lead the first joint research expedition. Maria was a cultural anthropologist who had spent her career studying how humans adapted to harsh environments. She was small and quiet, with gentle eyes that missed nothing. The idea of working with 12-foot-tall alien warriors should have terrified her. But Maria was excited by the challenge. Her partner was Crethany scholar Velteran, one of their most respected thinkers. Velteran was different from the warriors. His armor was lighter, and his claws were smaller. He carried books instead of weapons. His red eyes showed curiosity instead of anger. Their first stop was an Arctic research station in northern Alaska. The temperature was 40 degrees below zero, and the wind was strong enough to knock a person down. The Crethany scholars who came with Velteran expected to find humans barely surviving in heated shelters instead. They found a thriving community. Scientists worked outside in the deadly cold, wearing special suits that humans had invented.
Ow.
Children played in the snow, laughing and building snow forts. Families lived comfortable lives in buildings designed to handle the worst weather on Earth. How is this possible? Velteran asked Maria, as they watched human children playing games in temperatures that would kill most alien species in minutes. Learn to work with the cold instead of fighting it, Maria explained. Look at their clothes. Those aren't just random coverings. Every piece is designed by scientists and engineers. The boots keep their feet warm and give them grip on ice. The coats trap their body heat but let moisture escape so they don't get wet with sweat. They visited the research labs where human scientists were studying climate change, Arctic wildlife, and ice formation. The Crethany scholars were amazed to learn that these humans had volunteered to live in one of the most dangerous places on Earth, not for conquest or resources, but simply to learn and understand. Dr. Kevin Murphy, the station commander, showed them around the facilities. Kevin was a big man with a thick beard and laugh lines around his eyes. He'd been living in the Arctic for 15 years and loved every minute of it. The thing about living up here, Kevin told Velteran, is that you can't do it alone. Depends on everyone else. If one person makes a mistake, we all suffer. If someone gets hurt, we all help them get better. We're like one big family. Velteran watched as the humans worked together to repair a damaged weather station.
Nobody
gave orders. Nobody fought for the right to be in charge. They just saw what needed to be done and did it together. When a piece of equipment was too heavy for one person to carry, others automatically came to help. This was completely opposite to Crethany behavior. On their homeworld, the strongest warrior took charge and forced others to obey. Cooperation was seen as weakness. But these humans were achieving things that no individual Crethany could accomplish, simply by working together. Their next stop was a deep-sea research facility on the ocean floor. The pressure at that depth would crush a Crethany warrior's armor like paper. But humans had built a permanent base there, and were living comfortably while studying the deepest parts of Earth's oceans. Marine. Biologist Dr. Carol Jong gave them a tour of the underwater facility. Carol was in her 50s, with gray hair and the calm confidence that came from years of working in dangerous places. The ocean is trying to kill us every second we're down here, Carol explained as they looked out through thick windows at the alien world of the deep sea. The pressure, the cold, the isolation. But we've learned to turn all those problems into advantages. She showed them how the facility used the ocean's pressure to generate power. The cold water was used for cooling their computers. The isolation had taught the crew to work together so well that they could communicate with just looks and gestures. "On your world," Velteran said to Carol, "the strong survive by defeating the weak. But here, you seem to survive by helping each other." Carol nodded. "That's exactly right. Down here, if someone makes a mistake or gets into trouble, we don't abandon them. We fix the problem together, because we know that someday we might be the one who needs help." As they toured more human settlements, from desert research stations to mountain climbing bases to space habitats, Velteran began to understand something that shook his understanding of the universe. Earth was not just a dangerous planet that had produced tough humans. It was a planet so deadly that survival was only possible through cooperation. The revelation came when they were studying human evolutionary history in a laboratory in Switzerland. Dr. Emma Foster, a specialist in human development, was showing them fossilized remains of early humans. "Look at this," Emma said, pointing to ancient bones. "These are from humans who lived 50,000 years ago. See this broken leg bone? It healed completely, which means the person lived for years after the injury. But a broken leg would mean death for any individual trying to survive alone." Velteran leaned closer to examine the bones. "Someone cared for this injured person?" "For months," Emma confirmed. "Brought them food, protected them from predators, helped them move from place to place. And this isn't unusual. We find evidence like this everywhere. Humans with severe injuries who lived full lives because their community helped them survive." The implications hit Velteran like a physical blow. "Your species developed cooperation as a survival trait." "Exactly," Emma said. "The harsh conditions on Earth didn't make us into individual fighters like your people. They forced us to become cooperative. The humans who helped each other lived and had children. The ones who tried to survive alone died. Over millions of years, we became a species that grew stronger by helping each other. This was the opposite of Crethany evolution. The dangers of Krethos Prime had forced them to become solitary predators. The strongest individuals survived by defeating or abandoning the weak, but on Earth, the opposite had happened. The deadliest planet in the galaxy had created the most cooperative species. The final piece of understanding came during an earthquake that struck while they were visiting a human city in Japan. The ground shook violently, buildings swayed, and everyone expected panic and chaos. Instead, they witnessed something that left the Crethany scholars speechless. Humans immediately began helping each other. Strangers worked together to rescue people from damaged buildings. Medical teams appeared as if from nowhere. Food and supplies were shared freely with anyone who needed them. Fire Chief Danny Roberts was coordinating the rescue efforts when he noticed the visiting aliens standing in shock. Danny was 48 years old, tough and experienced from decades. "Of emergency response work, first earthquake?" Danny asked Velteran with a grin. "Your people are not fleeing," Velteran observed. "They are running toward the danger to help others." Danny shrugged. "That's what we do. When bad things happen, we help each other get through it. Always have, always will." As Velteran watched human rescue teams work with perfect coordination, he finally understood what made these creatures so dangerous to the Crethany Empire. It was not their individual strength, or their weapons, or their technology. It was their refusal to let anyone face danger alone. A species that would risk everything to save a single individual was a species that could never be truly defeated. Even if you killed 90% of them, the remaining 10% would work together to rebuild and come back stronger. The Crethany had conquered 1,000 worlds by defeating their strongest warriors and breaking their will to fight. But how do you defeat a species where every individual is willing to die for any other individual? How do you break the spirit of people who find strength in helping their enemies? For the first time in his life, Velteran understood that the Crethany might have finally found a species stronger than they were. 1 year after the first Crethoni ships had appeared in Earth's sky, Ambassador Claire Foster stood before the Galactic Council alongside Crethoni Prime Elder Kexel. The massive alien tower over her small human frame, but there was no tension. Between them now, they were partners presenting the most important proposal in galactic history. Claire looked out at the assembled representatives of dozens of alien species. Some were tall and thin, others were short and wide. Some breathed oxygen like humans, others lived in tanks filled with strange gases. But all of them were watching with intense interest as the galaxy's former greatest warriors asked to completely change their way of life. Honored delegates, Claire began. 1 year ago, the Crethany Empire came to conquer Earth. Today, stand together to propose a new alliance based on cooperation instead of domination. Elder Kextal stepped forward, his voice deep but no longer threatening. For 3,000 years, my people believed that strength came from victory over others. We were wrong. The humans have shown us a different path to power. The transformation had not been easy. Many Crethany still struggled to understand concepts like forgiveness and mercy. Many humans found it hard to trust beings who had recently been trying to kill them. But the results were impossible to ignore. The first joint human Crethany colony was thriving on a planet that should have killed both species. Kepler 442b was a world of extreme radiation and violent storms. The Crethany could survive the radiation with their natural armor, but they could not handle the electrical storms. Humans could predict and avoid the storms with their technology. But the radiation would have killed them quickly. Together, they had built a city that was safe for everyone. Crethany's strength had moved massive stone blocks to build radiation shelters. Human engineering had created storm prediction systems and lightning rods. Crethany endurance had allowed for long construction shifts in dangerous conditions. Human medical knowledge had developed treatments for radiation sickness that worked on both species, Lieutenant. Commander Steve Morgan was the first human to command a mixed crew. The UES Unity was unlike any ship in the galaxy, built using both human creativity and Crethany biotechnology. The hull was made from a living metal that could repair itself when damaged, grown using Crethany biological techniques. The navigation systems used human computer technology combined with Crethany instinctive understanding of space currents. Steve watched his bridge crew work together and marveled at what they had accomplished. Crethany navigator Texavel could sense gravitational changes that human instruments could barely detect. Human communications officer Lisa Park could decode alien languages that Crethany minds found impossible to understand. Together, they were exploring parts of space that neither species could have reached alone. The real test of the new alliance came when distress signals reached Earth from the Rigel system. A plague was killing everyone on 3 different worlds, and normal medical treatments were not working. Both human and Crethany doctors were baffled by the disease. Dr. Jennifer Walsh led the medical team that responded to the crisis. Jennifer was young for such an important mission, only 35 years old. But she had already become famous for her work developing treatments that worked on multiple alien species. Her partner was Crethany healer Morthic, a being whose people had traditionally solved medical problems by letting the weak die. When they arrived at Rigel Prime, they found entire cities empty. The plague killed slowly but certainly, and nobody seemed able to stop it. The local government had given up hope and was just trying to keep some people alive long enough to evacuate the planet. "This is impossible," Jennifer said after studying the plague samples. "It attacks the nervous system, but it does it differently in every species. It's like the disease is adapting to each person it infects." Morthic examined the data with his different way of thinking about biology. "Perhaps we approach this wrong. On Krethos Prime, when creatures adapt quickly, it means they are not truly one creature. They are many small creatures working together." This insight led to the breakthrough. The plague was not a single disease, but a collection of tiny organisms that communicated with each other and shared information about their hosts. When Jennifer and Morthic realized this, they were able to develop a treatment that disrupted the communication between the plague organisms. Working together, they saved 3 billion lives across 3 different worlds. The grateful planets immediately asked to join the new Human Crethany Alliance, bringing their own unique strengths to the growing coalition. But perhaps the most important symbol of change was the story of Zendar and Nancy White, the young Crethany warrior had been paralyzed during the invasion, and Dr. Nancy White had spent months helping him walk again. Now, Zendar served as a peace officer in the joint colonies, using his warrior training not to conquer, but to protect. When raiders attacked a human settlement on Kepler 442b, Zendar led the defense, but instead of killing the attackers, he captured them and brought them to trial. When asked why he had not simply executed them according to old Crethany custom, his answer became famous across the galaxy. Dr. Nancy White taught me that how we treat others shows who we really are. If I kill my enemies, I am just another killer. If I capture them and give them a chance to become better, maybe I am something more. The raiders were given a choice: prison or community service, helping to build new settlements. Most chose to help build, and many eventually became permanent residents of the colonies they had once attacked. This became the standard approach throughout the Alliance. Offer second chances. Look for ways to turn enemies into friends, Judge. People by their actions going forward rather than their mistakes in the past. The Galactic Council watched all of this with amazement. For millions of years, the galaxy had operated on simple principles. The strong ruled the weak. Conflicts were settled by violence, and different species competed for resources. The Human-Crethany Alliance was proving that cooperation could be more powerful than conquest. Ambassador Claire Foster addressed the assembled delegates one final time. We're not asking you to give up your strength or your independence. We're asking you to consider that maybe there's a better way to be strong. Maybe true power comes not from what you can destroy, but from what you choose to protect. Elder Kexel added, his own words, "My people spent 3,000 years conquering worlds and making enemies. In 1 year of working with humans, we have accomplished more than in all our previous history. We have built cities on impossible worlds. We have cured diseases that baffled our greatest healers. We have turned our former enemies into our closest allies." The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. 47 species chose to join the coalition of cooperative worlds. They agreed to share technology, defend each other from external threats, and resolve conflicts through negotiation rather than warfare. Not every species agreed. Some preferred the old ways of competition and conflict. But as more worlds saw the prosperity and security that came from cooperation, more chose to join the alliance. 10 years later, Captain Jake Morrison, now an admiral, stood on the bridge of the CSS Harmony, flagship of the Coalition fleet. His crew included humans, Crethani, and representatives from 20 other worlds. They were heading to investigate reports of a new threat from outside the galaxy, but Jake was not worried. Whatever was coming, they would face it together. And throughout galactic history, nothing had ever been able to defeat people who refused to fight alone. The galaxy had learned the most important lesson humanity had to teach, that the strongest species is not the one that can survive on its own, but the one that helps everyone else survive together. The Crethany had come to Earth expecting to find another world to conquer, and instead had found teachers who showed them what real strength looked like. The transformation was complete, and the universe would never be the same.